And we're back with another episode of Beyond the Track. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to see more of these, go to Supercross Live's YouTube page. We've talked to riders, mechanics, journalists, team owners, team managers. I mean, you name it. If it's involved in the sport, we've probably talked in that category. So this one's going to be good, though, because it's my buddy, one of the baddest journalists in the game. And I really like my Anton, dude. We've grown pretty close over the last few years. And I'm pumped to get on here and talk to you because there's things about you that I don't know that I want to explore a little bit. But let's just start with the present. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the end of the off season. It's countdown time, bro. You know that. It's 2.5 months now, and we're counting down the days. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah, thanks for having me on, Daniel. It's fun because, like, you know, some of those Saturday morning talks that you and I have at the races, you know, before you have to run up and do race day live or whatever else is going on, and before I go out onto the floor for the first practices, like, that's so fun. That's such a good time that you can catch up with everybody, and that's part of the fun for us of going to the races. But then, you know, we exchange notes and news and who's doing what, who looks good. Yeah, dude, I have a great time with you. And then I get to go home and watch on TV. And now probably 2,000 miles apart, but in each other's living rooms and just getting ready for this because, you know, like you said, it is that 2-month time, but like it's go time now. There's even been a couple articles this week and next week that I'm going to publish that I'm like, wow, these things are almost expired already. Like, yeah, they're still talking about the 2021 season and it was great, but, give it another 2 weeks and it's just old news.
It just moves fast. By the way, welcome.
Dude, it's
welcome
so
to my
fast
home
right now.
Welcome to my home.
Welcome to mine. Yep.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. You look good. You look good.
Thank
You're
you.
ready for
You look
another
good.
season. You got your coffee. I got a haircut. I cut my beard. The Supercross preview show. You've probably already done your part. Have you already done your
First part? Yeah, I didn't. The first part, we ran short on time, so we got to do a second part later this week, but that's good because I have a lot to talk about. You know, I just sat at home in this living room and just daydream about motorcycles all day, every day. So then when I get the chance to talk to people about it, I just ramble. So.
Well, not every day though, because some days you actually get out on the track, blister up your hands, and then do GNCCs, which is crazy. I guess you like suffering.
The first one. This would be the first one. So yeah, this weekend. Okay. Yeah. So I've not ever done one before. I've done endurance races and stuff like that. I've done, you know, motocross races, flat track stuff, TTs, whatever. But yeah, this weekend, Husqvarna has taken us out, and that's one of the perks about being a media guy. You know, you get to ride new bikes and you get to try out new events. And it was funny, like, maybe 6 years ago, I put down this little list in my head of like, okay, I'm going to do all of these races or something like them at some point in my life. And the GNCC is one of them. So to get to do that's going to be fun this week for sure.
Yeah, that'll be rad. Couple things I do want to go over with you. I thought I would ask this question differently because we've had journalists on this show, but I've never asked this question. And I feel like you might be the perfect guy to ask. Take me through Saturday at a Supercross for you. I like the actual timeline because there's a lot of fans that are like, they see the show on TV, then they read all the articles after or the pre-articles, but they don't really know behind the curtain, like how it all works. Like, what time do you do this? The schedule is so goofy and that people don't know that schedule. So for you, take me through a Saturday. I actually do want to know, like, how do you get your way around? Yeah. What is the timeline? What are your personal deadlines? Start with the morning. Are you a coffee guy? Okay. Like, how does this thing start?
Oh yeah, no, dude. Saturdays are the most fun. Saturdays, you know, every single Saturday for any race it's what I've always liked. You know, it's what kind of honestly draws me back every single weekend. The racing is great, and that's part of it. But the camaraderie that you have, just seeing everyone you know and people that you know you share all these life experiences with. That's what makes Saturdays the ultimate thing to do. So. For me, I'm kind of an early bird, especially because I get so excited about them and we have so much going. So if it's a Saturday Supercross, I'm probably up by like 6 and then start going through the day. The night before, Friday night's fun because like as a photographer, I'll go through and prep all my camera stuff. So I'll put music on. I'll go get a good dinner somewhere. That's also the other fun part about Supercross is you get to go to see all these different cities. And in the last 2 years to not do that has been kind of, but it'll get better. It'll get back to there. But like Seattle Supercross in 2019, I remember there was like a 5-star restaurant I wanted to go to that was super cheap. It was like Michelin star rated. I had to go do that. Come back. I'll clean my camera equipment up, make sure everything's good to go. Wake up on Saturday, get to the track.
I gotta stop. Hold on, I gotta stop you. What music are you listening to while you're while you're prepping?
Right now, it's a lot of like Midwest rap because I'm in the Midwest again. Dude, but it'll range. Like I love the Smiths and I love Morrissey and I love like 80s new wave, like Depeche Mode and all that. So I'll put that on.
Nelly?
You know,
Nelly? You
no,
listen to Nelly?
not really. Honestly, that's almost like too like cliche now. There's a lot of people
I'm
that
messing
do.
with you.
Yeah,
I'm messing
no.
with you.
But then like, as a former punk rock guy, like I grew up going to hardcore shows my whole teenage life. I'd be in like this 150, 250 capacity venue. So I'd go see like hardcore bands forever. So I'll listen to like Every Time I Die, Defeater, guys like that. So kind of whatever, just whatever's in the mood.
Did you ever soften up enough to bring some Story of the Year, Page Avenue into your life? Because that's not far from you.
That was the very first concert we ever went to. That was the very first concert. It was the first CD I think I ever bought. That's like my all-time favorite band. Yeah.
They're not far from. I mean,
like
they're not
40
far,
minutes.
right?
Yeah, they're
that's
St.
rad.
Louis band.
Yeah, I know those guys. So it's like they were like my favorite band too for years. So when you bring up your area and where you live, I'm like, I wonder if Page Avenue's close to you.
So one of the guys, Phil, the guitarist, he hosts a radio show here. And then back in the day, those guys like used to ride moto. So like when they would tour and they get off tour, they'd go ride a couple local tracks here. And I remember one time I saw them in a concert and then like they were signing at their merch table or something after. And I was like, yo, you guys ought to come to like, Moto Mania or whatever the track was that we were riding at the time. And it's cool. It was cool to see them. And then to see Phil like years later, he was at a Supercross race in St. Louis in like 2018 or 2020, something like that. And I had that conversation of like, bro, you are like one of my all-time favorite bands ever.
Same,
and you
dude.
remember, dude, think about how sick those Ibanez guitars they used to have were with the custom paint jobs and everything. That was like the equivalent of like a custom painted moto helmet.
Dude, I love them. I mean, anyways, we could go way off. Whatever. All right, so let's go back to you. You're listening to Nelly. You're getting your cameras ready.
And then so wake up on Friday or on Saturday and then just knock it out. I like to be at the track no later than like 9 o'clock. Like if you're there after 9 o'clock, you're pretty much late. And then you start running around, take some photos of the bikes and stuff like that are out in the pits because, they're perfectly spotless. Everything's ready to go. You get to see what's going on. If I'm allowed to, I'll duck into a truck and grab a quick cup of coffee, just kind of talk to people there and then see what's going on. You'll hit the photo den and then start working in there for a little bit, start setting everything up. I'll run into you, talk to Sean Brennan from Feld, just whoever's around, Steve Mathis, like whoever's nearby that week. And then once those bikes hit the first practice session for the free practice, it's on. It is wide open for the rest of the day. There are little breaks here and there. Like we get a break between practice. So then I'll get to go in and like edit photos, post on social media, get an update about what's going on. If somebody got hurt, who was fastest, that stuff's pretty typical. As the day builds on, it gets easier. You get a little break there for lunch, you get some other stuff going on, but then after the night show starts, it's just rapid fire. As soon as the heat race ends, you want to have the photos up and you want to have them posted on social media. After that gets done, then we have the press conference. I've been doing them a lot in the car lately, but it's been cool. And then from there, it's a 22-hour day. Like even after it's over, if the race is over at 10 o'clock, my editing stuff's not done till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then if I have a flight to catch out the next morning, I need to be up by 4 o'clock and then at the airport by 5:30.
It's wild, huh? Because it's such a big, long day, but I don't know about if it's the same for you. It's over and it's so fast. I'm like, what happened? Like I remember I go walking into the hotel at whatever time too, after the press conference. And when I walk in, it's this weird feeling of, I just felt like I walked out of this room to go get ice.
Oh, bro.
But really I went and did a whole day of Supercross and all the things. And then I come back and I'm in the room like, what just happened? It's the weirdest time feeling where it doesn't match up. Really.
No.
You know
and then
I mean?
like, and you don't feel like you did a lot because it went so fast. And then you lay down in bed and you just feel like you could feel the muscles in your thighs like pulsating because like, oh yeah, you just walked like 15 miles today with like all your camera stuff and you went everywhere and you climbed up and down these steps. It honestly, like those Sundays when you get home and you just rest, like Sunday, I'm wasted. I'm done. I'm
my
so
brain,
smoked after it. Yeah.
Physical
we'll watch
and
the
mental.
race again. We'll watch the race again. And really one of the most fun things about going to the races is coming home from them because my wife is like the ultimate race fan now. and she knows everybody in the pits.
She's waiting to talk to you.
She's waiting to talk. She knows everybody. She knows all the riders because she's worked a couple industry jobs. She has a bunch of friends that are there. So she already knows what happens at the races, but then she wants the background details. So honestly, like the most informed person in the world when it comes to like what I see is actually my wife, because then I just come home and I like tell her everything. And so like we have a cool time of like rewatching the race, and I'll like give her the context of like, oh, this happened here, or this, and this. And then I start putting together the content strategy for the week on Sunday too. So yeah, you never turn off, you know, once these Supercross races come, it's 7 days a week, but it's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's why we're all in it, right? It's why we're talking right now, because it's October and we want to talk about it. From the journalism side of things, this sport is different, I think, than
totally
a lot of the other. I mean, you know that. But one thing I noticed about you is you seem, maybe I'm wrong here, but pretty strict to like the traditional journalism. Like you even said, you have a article you're going to publish. Like you do things very, very legitly. Your stories are deep. They're well written. It's like you're like on it daily, but you also are creating these like long form type things too. Explain to me where that comes from, because this is a unique sport as far as how to cover it, but you seem to cover it like the most ultimate professional way ever, with your verbiage and the way you do things. And for me personally, I think that's why you're respected by, I think, everybody. I've never heard a bad thing about you.
Yeah.
Kudos to that. But I think you just handle things so professionally. Is that just who you are, or is there like a method
so
to that
weird,
where you're
dude.
trying to be that way?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. Like, I have the utmost respect for these guys. I think that it's just the coolest thing ever. You know, ever since I was a little kid, I just wanted to be involved in this industry in one way or another. So to get this opportunity, you know, you got to treat it with respect. And I know like there's a lot of people that, you know, there's no wrong way to do media, or no right way. There's no one way. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But knowing how we need to do this, and just how, like, if you tell people honestly what's happening in a very direct way, then there's no gray areas that they could get lost in. There's black and white. This is what happened, you know, and that's been kind of the fun thing to do with that. Don Maeda, who you did a video with a couple months ago, like Don instilled all that into me. You know, when I went out to work for Transworld in 2011, and when I started talking to him in 2009 about getting a job, you know, he left kind of no room for error for me. And ever since then, you know, that's kind of like been my motto, is like, hey, I want to do it this way. And really, I want to make content that I think I would be interested in. You know, like what would 16-year-old me back in Illinois, what would he have just been like getting in trouble in computers classes, or like rushing home to see? Like, that's the content that I want to make. So I appreciate you saying all those great things and all that, because there are times that like you do so much and you're just like, man, is anybody like paying attention or anything like that? And it's so fun to have a respect within the industry, because I have, like I said, the utmost respect for everybody, so that it's mutually given back to me is huge. It's fun to put so much stuff out there though, because there is no shortage of stuff. You know, there's 22 guys on the line, and every single guy has a different story of how they got there, or what they're going through in that week, or, you know, even what they're going through in that day. So you want to find out about that stuff, because that could really give you a lot of context of why their race results are going the way they are. You know, you never know.
Right.
We know there's certain stuff like, hey, a guy could be injured. He could have like a hurt ankle, or a hurt wrist, or a hurt knee, or whatever. But then think about the other stuff that happens in the background. You know, he could be riding for a contract. He could, you know, he could have some family stuff happening at home that you never know about, that just gives you so much detail about that stuff. And the cool thing about talking to all these guys lately too, especially in these last 2 or 3 years, that we're all kind of on this like equal playing field now. If you give them the opportunity to open up and just be like, hey man, non-judgmental, non-biased, like, what's up, what's going on? Once they open up and they see like, hey, it's not everybody out there after them, that like, hey, no, you can vent, like, you can just tell me what's going on. It's not the end of the world. Like, what's up? It really does break down a lot of barriers. And that's been really the most fun thing about the Swap Moto Live thing in the last 2 years. Transworld was great. I love Transworld, but now that Swap Moto Live is like me and Don and Chase, and you know it's us, that's made it even more fun too.
The one thing I've learned in this industry too is that when it comes to journalism, mostly everybody has relationships in the pits with certain riders. You know, like Mathis is, I mean, AC, Osborne, Alex Martin, like those are Steve's guys.
Oh, he's got them on lock.
And you have your friends too that you just have built these. You said it probably started with some trust, and build like, you know, you're going to cover them fairly correctly. The next thing you know, you kind of hang out with them, you realize you like things about them. Is that kind of weird sometimes in the sport though, when you are trying to cover things and you have these relationships? Because again, for me, I'm friends with all the riders, but then I kind of have to do my job too, and that's not always. Whoa!
Yeah, sorry. We got the UPS.
Didn't like that. Bad question.
Question. Honestly, great question. UPS guy just showed up. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I take 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll go for it. I'll talk while he's going. So yeah, one of the things in the sport for all the fans tuning in, a lot of the journalists and media in the sport, and myself included, have relationships with riders that are sometimes more on a just casual, you know, just at the races friendships, and then some are actually deeper than that. So you have this weird thing where you want to cover somebody fairly and do your job correctly, but at the same time, you know these people. So I'm assuming every industry is like that a little bit. But for Anton, he's not hearing this right now. You all are. So he's got his friends too. But at the same time, like I mentioned, covers everything super fairly and professionally. Just a little behind the curtain for all the fans right there. That. So Anton, I just gave the fans a little behind the curtain on how relationships work in the sport and how we have them. We value them, but we also have a job to do. And there's that fine line. You got to find it.
And like you said, like Justin Bogle is a key example of that. Like Bogle's Oklahoma kid, you know, he's probably 5-6 hours from me. We didn't grow up around each other. Oh my God, sorry.
All good, dude. Just dog wants to be part of this show. Put the earbuds in. There we go. See, Anton, if you would have just included
him in the first place,
the beginning, dude, that's all he wants. Dude, he just wants on the show, man.
He just wants in. Yeah, no, I feel so. See, this is how all these nice comments you said about how professional I am, and then now I have him doing this.
That's at the track, not at home.
I know, right? Yeah.
Beyond the track, you have a dog.
True. So for the Bogle thing, though, like Justin is such a good kid, and I know his mom and dad. You know, I've met his whole family, and you kind of just see how he has a real outlook on everything in the world. And you kind of have to appreciate that. And there's things that he's gone through that he's been open to tell me. And there's things that I've gone through that I've been open and told him. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of that mutual respect where you know where each other stands on everything. But then at the same time, you do have to put that stuff to the side and be like, hey, I have to go do my job now. In the same way, you got to go do your job. And if you have a really good friendship and they understand that, then it shouldn't be a big deal. The people that get upset,
because they're aware, right? Because
they're aware.
Are also aware of their own situations.
The ones that get to, once you get to a certain level, and this is like any kind of human nature thing, once you get to about here and you realize like, hey, this is how the world goes, that defensiveness thing kind of goes down. And I really think we've seen that a lot in the entire race field lately. You know, as we see these guys mature and get older and everything, we're starting to see more honest answers, and we're starting to see that they don't have to be as guarded as they used to be. But yeah, I think like the people that do get upset, if you say something that you maybe shouldn't have said, it's because you just don't have the relationship there that you thought you did yet. Mm-hmm. That's when those things happen. And then you just kind of build it up over time. The fortunate thing for us is, and it does kind of give you a little bit of like a safety net to fall back on, it's just our bike racing. You know, I'm not like in some war-torn country talking about like peace deals and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it is a lot of money on the line. There is a lot. You do have to do a very good job of it. But at the same time too, like it is not a life and death scenario. So you don't have that high level of like tension all the time. If somebody did get mad at you, you could defuse it with a couple conversations, or, hey, maybe you just don't talk to that guy on track walk for like 3 weeks. He'll ice you out and then it'll get better over time.
Hey, and then he does one good night, and then he wants to.
And he's like, "Hey, yeah, what's up? Yeah,
what's up?" And then you write good things about him,
and then you're right back.
It, and then you're good again.
And like, hey, I've been on both sides of it. You know, I've had racers love me. I've like, you know, we're you know, we can talk about not even stuff about racing. You know, we just talk about family things or music or life or whatever. And then, you know, I've got some guys that don't like me and they've kind of, you know, blown me out, or we've had a couple little like spats, but I think that that's normal. You know, if you're doing this job and you haven't had at least like a couple, dude, what'd you say that for, conversations, then you're obviously not doing it right.
Yeah. Last year, Christian Craig came out, you know, on fire in Houston. He was awesome. And he was saying I was motivated by the haters and I was motivated by those who didn't believe. And I'm thinking, dang, who is he? I mean, he's being pretty like on the nose with that.
Yeah.
And then come to find out later, it was me he was talking about.
Are you serious?
And he told me there's some things you said on your podcast. I was driving the track and I heard some things. I didn't like it. It motivated me. And I was like, you're welcome, I guess. I don't know what else. Hey, if I inspired you to come out and win, then I should maybe get a cut of your bonus check if I was that influential in your motivation. So
okay, think about when you were a racer back in the day, and like you're the early 2000s, so you're kind of on the first generation of like internet stuff. Cycle news and all that stuff is gone, but like, hey, the forums are out there. There's Facebook, stuff like that. How did you respond when there was like criticism just coming in from all angles? Because you guys didn't really deal with that 15, 20 years ago, but now racers deal with it every single day.
For me, as a racer, I actually didn't deal with that much at all, because I was always in a position where I think that I was overachieving what maybe people thought I should be doing or could be doing. So people were always pumped on when I did good, and when I did bad, they didn't say anything because they thought maybe that was normal. For me, is when I felt it is when I started doing TV, and I didn't feel it in arena cross at all. I don't think anyone was paying attention. But when I got over to Race Day Live and stuff, it was all positive. And then all of a sudden, some negativity seeped in. And Anton, straight up, like I couldn't handle. I was so pissed at some of the things I'd read online. And producer Joe from my podcast is like, dude, you're gonna have to like move past that if you want to stay in this business. Like, you can't be that sensitive if you're going to be in this business. And so I don't know if it was just what he said, but I snapped my fingers and I've never cared since. So criticism to me, I don't even acknowledge it unless there's some truth in it. Then I'm like, oh, I'll use it to get better. But like when I see people that say some things, I don't even acknowledge it. Just goes right over my head. I don't even care. But that was something I had to like force myself to change. And I get why these writers are that way. They pour everything into it they can, right? They put their whole heart into this. And then when things go bad and the media is like, man, he sucks, or we don't say it that way, but I could see them being like, dude, I'm giving it all I have. And then this is what I get negatively. So I understand it. But at the same point, Ken Roxon, I think, is prime example of someone who has learned to just like not care what people think. And he just does his thing and stays positive regardless of what people say. And he should inspire everybody else to just ignore the negative, because that dude's, I think, has handled it pretty well. And he's got a lot of heat unfairly, in my opinion. And he seems to be like, yeah, whatever, I'll just stay positive. So I think personally.
So. Yeah. And to your point on the whole criticism thing, because people don't realize, but like, we're all getting it, you're getting criticism. Always. Dude, I get criticism from stuff. The minute that you kind of put yourself into nothing like the racers do, but the minute you put yourself into the public spotlight, you open yourself up to just like taking shots from wherever. And same thing that you had to do, like a couple years ago, I was really weak-minded and I'd just be like, oh my God. And I get stressed out and real depressed about like what people were thinking of me and like, what do they think I'm doing a good enough job? And hell, I lost my job. And stopped caring at that point. I was just like, if I can make a paycheck doing this again later on and I can do it on my terms, great. But I'm not going to let like a bunch of detractors and stuff like that deter me from what I'm going to do. And like you said, for Kenny, I think he's figured that out. Like once these guys hit that adult maturity standpoint where they're just like, hey man, I only need to worry about me and the people around me and not the outside world. Everything else comes easy. So it's cool to see, like I kind of think too, so many people in our circle right now, because we're all aging out at that same time, are realizing that about in unison with each other.
It's like a big industry maturing all happening at the same time.
Totally.
It is. And even the communication with riders, they've gotten, I feel like there's been a change and it's gotten a lot better.
It's gotten tremendously better in the last even 3 years,
So, well, and I'll bridge that in. I'll segue that in. I love this word segue because I hear it on podcasts all the time. So I'm going to segue that into another question. But a couple of years back, we had the media days in Southern California. Our TV coach, Tony Martinez, was there and we were working with all the riders kind of in groups. Were you there for that when they were
No, I wasn't there for that. I've heard about what you guys have done, but then at the same time too, like I see where you don't let us come into it at the same time too, because like it's so hard to tell riders one thing, even to get them to take a day off from training to come and do a social media summit or a media summit with you guys, whatever, to have us then come in. That's a whole other variable that you guys don't really need to worry about. But I can tell that it's actually helped a lot of the riders because they saw themselves now as like, hey, I need to speak this way. I need to talk about these things. I don't necessarily need to rattle off a list of sponsors, but I just need to be more personable because that's going to actually build me a fan base and explain what's going on more than anything else will.
so funny because you're right. And it was great. All these riders were there for like 2 days and they're frustrated because like, why am I here? I should be riding.
Do not want to be there. And you guys are doing
I should
it.
be riding. And you guys are here talking to me about how to brand myself. And the funniest one, Anton, was Jason Anderson. So he comes to our table. It's Dino, Zach, Jason, all the Husky guys. And we're just talking about, interviews and branding and whatever. And it's very, very loose. It's not like, hey, you guys need to do this. It's more like, hey, let's explore this. And it's funny because Dean and Zach are like all in. They're like, Dean's like loving it. He's like, yeah. And Zach's like, he's like one of those note taker kind of guys. He's
very, yes, very precise about it. He wants to like analytical.
Dude, and trust me, all the things we talked about with the riders, he is the only one that took a couple of the pointers from our coach and used them on the podium. And every time he does, I'm just like, I love Zach. But Jason was the best. He was like, guys to brand me. I have my own brand. I have my own fans. I'm not looking for more fans. And we're like, no, we understand that. That's what makes you you. And he goes, yeah, but I don't need you guys to tell me that I'm me. And we're like, no, but we still need to do our job. You are a certain way. So we're trying to understand you better so we could do better at promoting you. He's like, I don't need you to promote me. And we're like, no, you don't get it. It's not a matter of what you need. We need to do our job and promote. And it was so contentious, but like in a respectful way, because Jason is so respectful, even when he's really wanting to play ball. And it was the coolest thing ever because some of the things that happened in that meeting, I ended up using later on him on the podium. And he didn't know this. He doesn't know it now, but it was just funny because these riders, they all are kind of playing ball, but the one guy who kind of won't play ball accidentally did. And I used it on him later, but it was just funny. And it just shows how the sport is like, I think they see F1 a little bit. They see some things out there and they're like, we need to get better, and we're willing now, where I don't think that would have happened in the Ryan eras, the Dungey Villepot. They would have never played ball with any of this stuff. And now you got these guys that they're playing ball. Like they're into it.
It's weird because like Ryan Dungey he was like that close to like really putting it together. And then Kenny was in the same way too. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but like they hired the big agency, like, Dungey getting the Wheaties cover. I know a bunch of people are like, oh my God, how does that happen? Because he had the biggest agency in Los Angeles representing him.
Yep.
Like these things aren't just like an accident. Like him getting to the ESPYs is not just an accident. Like these are things that behind the scenes, there's a lot of strings being pulled. Even Feld, you guys have to make nominations and do what you guys got to do. And to see everybody, there's a lot of push. And to see the industry right now, the riders, the media people, the brands, everybody realizing like, hey, there is a program that we all need to follow and that we're going to get there is good because like you said, I think the F1 series, the behind the Drive to Survive series on Netflix, I think that really was what we needed because motocross for so long was like trying to fit into the stick and ball sport program. Like, hey, let's be like basketball or let's be like this. Or let's be like that. And none of those things like translate to us, but racing, MotoGP and F1, those are the two biggest sports and they make just as much money as any, Major League Baseball, NFL, whatever, they do just as much. So for us to follow those trends is huge. I think that's a big deal right now. And it's cool to see us kind of going that way on the Jason point. And he's not wrong, and this was something that I wanted to talk to you about. We're really seeing guys become their own media outlet. And like a couple years ago, we saw that with Instagram and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. But Jason has been so, he's persevered through like a couple different things and like tried to figure it out until him and Tom and Matt got to the Team Fried deal, and Team Fried rules. Like Team Fried is some of the best content that's out there. But then you have a kid like Jet Lawrence, and I know you love Jet, but like I'm not on TikTok because I'm 31 years old. But then my wife's on TikTok and she showed it to me the other day, and I'm just like, oh my God, that kid has a massive following. So like you already have this TikTok thing going on. You have Hayden Deegan who just signs the Star deal. And, he has this YouTube phenomenon behind him. Like we're really to this point now where riders are going to be able to do whatever they want. And it's going to bring them so much exposure and so much sponsorship and so much attention. And it's only going to help grow the sport as a whole. But we as a group have to know how to work off that and realize like, it's not just a one size fits all thing anymore.
No, everyone's going to do their own thing, their own way. And and I'm with you that these riders becoming their own media outlets is cool. We still have to do our job and cover it for the fans, but this is their way of connecting directly. And I think it's smart for them. And obviously they're building their own brand. Jason was right. He doesn't need us to build his brand. He does it his own way. But that's where that relationship, that respectful relationship comes into play. And luckily me and him have a history enough to where we can work through the fact that he doesn't really want to play the game all the way. Totally. And I get that and I respect it, but I still have to do my job. So there's this like tug of war that I think worked for both. And he's right. He's been kind of on the forefront of like, I'm going to be me, whether y'all like it or not. The name Team Fried to me is hilarious. Like,
it's hilarious.
It's just hilarious what they've done and how well it's worked. And
oh, dude, I mean,
you're 100%
and it's
right.
it's so identifiable because like, who wouldn't want to be like Tom puts in the music that we all want to listen to. You know, you see it from the dream perspective because like why I love Team Fried videos so much. And I told Tom this summer. Everything that he sees is what I saw from like maybe 10 feet away. Like he was pretty much standing in the same spot. So all of his videos are basically my home movies of going to the races. Cause like we saw it pretty much side by side with each other. And I agree with you to that point.
But he adds some things that maybe
that I didn't see. Yeah. But I agree with you on the Jason thing too. Like the riders are going to be their media and they are going to tell you what's going on. And like, hey, dude, you got to put out those Instabangers. You got to put those test track laps out there. You have to show people like why you want to be a professional athlete. Because like, I mean, dude, think about it. You're 20 something years old. You have a bank account full of money. You get to ride the best motorcycles that there have ever been to date, you know. And for most of these guys, like, hey, you're good looking. You get to go travel the world. Like, why would you not want to hype up this like movie star, rock star athlete?
Their lives are rad.
Hype that up on your Instagram, but then they're not going to tell us the dirty nitty gritty details that we then as media guys have to go out there and pull off. And I think that there will always be that like nice fine line between the two that we're always going to have. So I think that like, even if there's two, it's not a bad thing at all.
No, I agree. It's the more, the better too.
Totally.
We're hitting it from all angles, you know,
especially as we just keep going forward. Like there is no shortage of content out there. There's no shortage of information. It's made our jobs as media people a little bit harder, but it's also made them easier in other ways because I'm like, well, now I don't have to like sit there and wait for a press release. This guy's going to say it on his own. So there you go.
Yeah. Weird, cool times right now when it comes to this kind of stuff. When it comes, and this is back to my segue. So my TV coach, when I first started working with him, he said, hey, you're going to always be you, but you need to start studying other broadcasters and kind of pick apart the little pieces from them that you want to add to you. So imagine me like a stock bike. I got to go put a pipe on it. I got to go put some suspension on it. I'm going to pull from Tony Roma or whoever it is that I like and then create a better me. When it comes to journalism, Anton, you're going to do things your way, but you're also influenced by other people and have, you know, what are those influences? Who steered you into being a better version of you?
Like I said earlier, Don, like far and away, that's my yellow dad. You know, that is a second father figure to me. He's taught me pretty much everything. The photography thing, I never really like expected to be a photographer. It was just something I had to do. And then over the last few years, it's become a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of good experiences and just kind of like right place, right time moments to capture. A lot of that goes back to, I read Simon Cudby or like looked at Simon Cudby stuff forever as a little kid. Like I have his American motocross books that he did back in the early 2000s from the Outdoor Nationals. I mean, I think that really like set the style for me of like, wow, that's what going to the races looks like. Same thing for Garth Milan, especially because Garth shot free ride stuff. So Garth was able to go out to the hills or go to freestyle competitions and made it just look so cool. And then as I've gotten older, especially like what you just said, you know, like, hey, you think you might have it figured out, but then later on, you're going to find that there are older guys that have been around a little bit more in different professions or in different disciplines of your job that do it a little bit differently. So Matt Oxley is this MotoGP rider, like journalist. He's been around for 40 years, I think 35, 40 years by now. By far, like one of the most solid guys. He's gone to all these races. He knows everybody the same way we know all of our guys in Supercross. Adam Wheeler, you know, is contemporary of ours. He has On Track Off-Road, this really great little digital magazine. Adam invited me to write for it this year. I have like a little monthly blog. So to write like for him is cool because Adam sees it from this like really polished English writing style perspective. You know, he's a British guy, so he uses different words and different vernacular than we do because like over here, it's completely different. Mathis is great. I like just Steve's, honesty. Like, it's just kind of brutally honest. And I don't think a lot of people like that, but that is what Steve is. And to see so many people latch onto that and just appreciate it rather than it being like sugar coated or over explained or something is huge. Wygant is, great. Jason is the bar, because I really think that Jason, as far as journalism stuff goes and communication, he has it figured out because he actually does have a degree and I don't. And then over the last year, I really started wanting to do more like on camera stuff and more public speaking and things. And really for you, Daniel, and this is no joke, like seeing how well you've done in all the series you had to learn through, and then how just you've progressed. I'm like, well, hell yeah. Like if Daniel can do it, like that's who I need to follow. Like he clearly is seeing like, hey, you can make these little things. And if it wasn't your chosen profession at first, you can get good enough at it. And I think you do a great job. I love hearing what you do and just the insight you have. So there's a lot of people that I'm really lucky to call friends that I'm able to be like, hey, what do you think about this? This isn't working. How do I do this? And it's cool to have that stuff.
That is what's crazy to me, is how many people inside the industry you draw from as your inspiration, when we all know that it's a competitive world. Everyone's trying to be the best or move up or be more likes, more whatever. And for me personally, it's pretty cool to hear you say there's people in the industry that you work with that influence you, because again, it can be cutthroat. I know journalism is cutthroat in other industries, and it's very, very weird in some, probably more on the political world and some of the national issues. In sports, though, it is too. It's a little wild, but I think it says a lot about our sport that you're influenced by. I mean, you just named like all your competitors. I mean, you named Steve and Weed. We're talking Racer X and Pulp, and these are your influences, and it says a lot about your character, but it also says a lot about the character of the sport, because I think that same tone would be delivered by Weege or by Mathis. They would say, man, I love Anton. I love the way he does things. And I don't know. To me, for this sport, it's pretty cool that we're all kind of in this group together where we respect each other. Even the riders, there's riders that kind of, but I think overall, everybody respects everybody well enough to where this ship is sailing in the right direction. So it's just cool to hear you say that.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's true too, on the whole competitive thing, like to mention Weege and Mathis, like, yeah, we are competitors, but like, I've gone to dinner with them after the races or before the races, or I've talked to them about stuff. I went to Steve's wife's birthday party. Like when you are around these people for so long, all of that competitive stuff does kind of melt away. There might be times where, you still got to kind of like throw the elbows up and, get a story or get something up before them or whatever. And that'll always be around. But as far as all that stuff goes, like, I don't feel like I have to do that as much anymore because I'm kind of like set in my career. Whereas back in the day, like where you're fighting for your life every single day and you have to be so competitive then, but I feel like I'm at a good point right now where I can just kind of like hang out and enjoy what I've been doing. I still got to push the envelope and keep breaking stories and keep putting content out there and not get complacent. But at the same time too, we're all kind of finally at this point where we can, enjoy the moment rather than just running around waiting for the bottom to fall out of it at any moment.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree. When it comes to writing articles, it's a lot different than doing an Instagram post, right? Instagram post is meant for, look at this cool photo, little caption, but it's like, get them likes, get some traction, keep everybody entertained. What's it like for you when it comes to actually writing these articles and you're actually having to be perfect? It's all about these not perfect, but good articles, solid articles, great writing. You want to be entertaining, but you need the content. There's like this balance. What's it like for you when you're putting these pieces together and you're about to publish something? Is there any of those nerves at the last minute? God, is this good enough? Like, I'm going to press
every single time.
Still. So you're still like, I'm going to press send and God, I hope this was right. You still feel that?
Every day. I think maybe even now more than ever too, because like, I don't have like the trans world massive net of like 6 other employees to proofread this or do that. Like when I push publish, it's out there, so I really got to be on my toes about like, did I say everything I wanted to say? Was there any mistakes? Mistakes still happen, like a good thing I'm a doctor, or I'm not a doctor and I'm just playing on a website, because there'd be a lot of people with like malpractice suits against me right now. But yeah, still, especially if it's something that's kind of noteworthy, like when you put out a team roster or you put out like the Eli Tomac's going to Yamaha News or something, and like one wrong word here could really damage the story and then damage your credibility too. Like those are some pretty intense times.
Or that relationship with that athlete or that team. It's like,
totally.
Dude.
That 3 hours until you start hearing some feedback where you're just like, oh God. Like, did this go right? Did this not? And then later on, you're like, once you start to hear some positive stuff come back in, you're like, okay, it's not so bad. But then, dude, there can be some times where just sitting there trying to put the article together used to be so easy. And then now I can like psych myself out and get in my head. I'm like, what should take 45 minutes takes like an hour and a half now because I go through and change every single line because I wasn't happy with it. It's weird.
I mean, but yeah, it is, but that's your perfecting your craft. I mean, I guess it makes it say if you didn't do that, you probably wouldn't do a very good job. So
even
if you were just lazy, this will be fine.
Yeah, that's good. Here you go.
lawsuits coming.
The Instagram thing is funny though, because everybody thinks that like, oh yeah, dude, it's just whatever. It's such a small caption and the photo should do all this, the speaking, like a photo says 1,000 words. But realistically, like, because you only have like that much space, you're trying to cram in so much information. And then people will get in the comments of like, well, you didn't talk about this, this, and this. And it's like, yeah, dude, it's Instagram. We're just trying to make it fast. Like go to the website for the more stuff.
Makes sense. And then, Instagram is meant almost as an on-ramp to
drive
content.
You to the website.
Yep,
and that's really been an interesting thing about seeing how content strategies have shifted in the last 8 years. I remember when I started at Transworld full-time in 2011 to now. So 10 years really. We really went through this big thing of like, what is Instagram? What's this? How are we going to use it? Is this even something that we're going to do? To now it's pretty much one of your number one traffic driving sources to your website. So it's funny how things change so much. Even YouTube, like what people are watching this on. Years ago, YouTube was kind of like, how do you use it? How do you monetize it? How this, how whatever. Dude, the last year and a half, everybody's a YouTube celebrity now. Even buying the ring light that I had to go buy, like everybody bought them because everybody wanted to be a YouTube star last year when they were locked at home. So it's been really interesting to see the content change. I'm glad that we kind of got kicked out of print the way that we did. I miss print really badly, but as we go to an all digital world right now, it's just kind of like, here you go. You got to do it.
So as you're trying to figure out Instagram and YouTube, you're figuring those out, but because you're in your 30s, we're not going to figure TikTok out. I
don't know. I'm honestly though. Okay. So you
need to hire some kid, dude, hire some 18-year-old kid and say, you're going to run the TikTok division.
See, I've thought about that. I've thought about that. But then at the same time, like, how your parents get old and they like, hey, you set up their TV or their phone and now you're the smartest person in the world to them. I can't like steer into the skid at 31. I got to like kind of stay a little bit sharper to try to figure it out. I don't know if we're going to have like a Swap Moto live TikTok at the races. I think that I got too much on my plate as it is. But then, we have to do that kind of stuff. I mean, as a brand now, as a media brand, you have to have that. Supercross, even for you guys, I'll tell you this. There was a little bit of concern like 3-4 years ago when Supercross started putting out more content. People were like, oh my God, can you believe they're going to be a media title now? And the whole time that I did it, I'm like, well, yeah, I can see where that's a little bit like concerning if you're an endemic media title like us or Racer X or Vital or whatever. But at the same time, you have to have that stuff because if you guys who are not the, mainstay of the sport aren't pushing that information out there, then it's millions of lost eyeballs and interactions that we can't get that eventually do funnel down from you guys to us. Because if they see Supercross and they become a super fan, they want to start finding out where there's other places to get information. And they come to us. If you guys don't push your content out there, we're all at a loss.
Right. I don't know how that all works and how those decisions are made. In fact, you say bringing that up, I'm like, dang, that's kind of true. I never thought about like when Supercross went heavier on the media side, how that affected things. I never even thought about that.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely did. There were some people that were stressing for a bit of like, wow, now is the promoter a competitor and all these things. But I think, obviously cooler heads always prevail. And over the last few years, anybody with common sense has seen like, no, they have to do this because the NFL does it. F1 does it. MotoGP does it. If they just left they got to promote their own brand. You have to, you guys have to drive ticket sales. You have to drive interactions and if you're a smart media title about it, you know how to kind of make the most of your effort too. Yeah. So it's cool to see.
I got an issue, and maybe you can you're going to be on my side with this and you're going to be annoyed, or you're going to educate me right now because I don't know. But I have a personal frustration with something in the sport. Okay. I don't like that I knew about the Eli Tomac thing, Yamaha, months ago. I don't like how I knew about AP at KTM. And I hate knowing these things. And we talk about it and then we tease it, but we wait and wait and wait for an official press release. And I know there's legality in this stuff. But maybe that's what it is. But can you either educate me or be frustrated with me on the fact that we know so many things that we're not allowed to talk about because it's not official from them yet? And it's this whole thing. And for me, I guess on my end, it's like I get hit up with people at the track or online. Is this Tomac to Yamaha thing real? And it's like endless. And it's like, yes, it's real, but it's not allowed to be real yet because they haven't gone official. What takes so long? Why is this stuff so sneaky? Is it pure contract legality? And you,
I don't know.
On the frustrating,
I'm on your side about it
because you're ready. You're like ready, right? You're like ready to do a story. You're ready to drop this. But we're sitting here like this, like, okay, when's this going to drop so we can do our part? You know what I mean? It's just, I'm annoyed by that for some reason. It irks me.
I'm annoyed by it at times, but then I also I see after doing it for so long, I kind of see both sides of like why we have to do it that way. Cause like once we figured out the EY stuff, like, you know, back in Dallas, I think it was when I really first started hearing like, hey, we're trying to get this contract thing figured out for him. Here you go. You can talk about like, all right, he's probably going to Cali. He might do this. You know, there were other offers that were on the table, but we all just kind of laughed at him, to be honest, because I didn't think he was leaving. And then once Mathis did break that news after the Supercross season ended, and then you can start kind of like pounding the pavement to find out what's out there and what's going on. That was pretty good, but I agree with you that like sometimes it does take forever to finally start saying what it is. There's
but
some
we already
stuff,
know what we all know.
We already know. I think that you'll never hear it from the writers because like they're contractually obligated, you know, up until that termination date. And especially if like in Eli's position, if you get that news broken in May and you still have all the way until September that you got to work with them, you probably don't want to say a lot of stuff to like mess up that relationship, especially if you're in a championship contention thing. But I agree with you. There should be a little bit more forthcoming stuff. Now, like on the AP thing, honestly, I don't think that they had a lot of that stuff figured out until even more recently. Like what we were saying was about as much as we knew. But then over time, more stuff does eventually like trickle out more and more. But for then, like, you know, over the summer, I think that we were still kind of like, I think he's going, but Yamaha could still pull something at the last minute like they tried to do to Barsha that one time. To keep him. He could want to stay. Who knows? But I agree with you. Like we should just do a little bit more. It's one of those things where the journalist has to stick their neck out a little bit more. And there is a risk that comes with that because like, you know, I watch MotoGP stuff all the time. So with Valentino Rossi's like retirement year and the decisions that he's had to make of was he going to keep going? Was he not? You know, there's all this rush to be the first one to break the story, but they might not have even talked to him. They might not have even talked to somebody in that circle until you're able to have everything like totally honed in. You can't really be speculating or saying that stuff. You have to have pretty good intel. And I think that that's something that a lot of our guys are still worried about is because it's so close and so friendly. You don't want to burn those relationships because there's only so many media guys and there's only so many writers.
Right. On my podcast, I know a lot of things that I don't say because I just wait for Mathis to say it. He seems to be the one that's not afraid to be blunt and just say things. He's not afraid. And
and I'll agree with that.
I wait for him because once he says it, I feel like, okay, then I can just say it now because I just say that he said it. You know what I mean? So it's almost like he's like the protective guard for me. Like when he says it, I'm going to let things fly, even though I've known this for months.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example, and then I want to make one more point on this, and I want your opinion. Do you remember when Darkside in a press conference asked AC about going to 450 class with Cowie and signed his deal? This was like in a press conference. Yeah. And AC was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And well, Darkside got in big trouble from Cowie. It was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I feel bad because I knew it was already done deal. And I told Darkside, dude, ask it. I'm hosting the press conference. I'm not going to ask it. So I kind of like, hey,
you kind of fed him one.
That question. Yeah. I fed him one and he did. And he was right. But he got kind of like scolded for that because he broke news. So switching brands, I get that. But when a 250 guy goes to the 450 on the same brand, the same kind of people, I was kind of annoyed that was such a big deal when it's like, we all know it's already a done deal. He asked a very simple question that the fans all want to know. AC probably did the right thing and be like, aha, he probably was told not to say anything. But it bugged me that became a bad thing for him. as if like he like broke some rule by asking a question that we all knew. It's like that stuff bugs me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that because, like, sorry to keep going back to the Formula One thing, but like over like 4 weeks ago, maybe they went through their massive, silly season stuff where everybody starts playing musical chairs of who gets signed again, who doesn't. Valtteri Bottas announces that he's going to leave Mercedes because they're going to bring George Russell in. He's going to go over to Alfa Romeo. That's a whole brand switch. They're talking about it with 7-8 races left in the season. Why can't we do that? I don't understand. I agree with you. I think that sometimes the teams and the OEMs get a little bit too protective of that October 1 contract deadline. And maybe that's just something that we as a group collectively, like, if it's not going to cost you any money to talk about what you're doing next year and you're, an independent contractor like these guys are, go ahead and talk about it. I think maybe we just have to be more like that. I agree with you that I think that the teams, there needs to be kind of like a revision to how we break that news, because we all waited so long for October 1st, right? And this is no like knock against anybody. This is no knock against anybody. But like, if you knew it was coming and all of that stuff, like have a pre-made photo shoot, have all this stuff to do, have these assets that are ready to go, rather than us just like sitting there waited for bated breath for a 250-word press release that has a cell phone photo of the bikes or the riders in them. Make it worth our while. Make it worth us. Like, dude, I've been talking about this thing for 4 months now and can't wait. Like, give me something worthwhile to show that rather than
if you're gonna do this to us, then make it like a presentation.
I think that's the biggest thing right now that would help is if we could just make those announcements more grand, and but I agree with you that we do kind of need to get away from that stigma of like, hey, if you talk about it, oh my God, you can't get blacklisted by it because again, it's nothing that serious.
It's not breaking news. Oh my gosh, I can't. But it's like we all knew, but this is like the official. I don't know, whatever, silly.
But again, and I say that as the white son of Don Maeda who was embroiled in the Jeremy McGrath No Fear Fox lawsuit. So maybe Don knows something I don't know. So who knows?
Okay, so last question. It's in the same discussion, but it also bridges into some bench racing, and this will be our last one. My opinion is that the top story for 2022 is Cooper Webb's split with Alden Baker. Alden Baker was part of the correction in Cooper Webb's 450 career. Big part of it. Obviously, the discipline side, the trainers are so valuable these days. Cooper leaving and being like, nah, I'm going to go win on my own without the guy that I've won with now 2 titles. To me, that's a massive, massive story.
Oh, it's huge. Baker, it's huge.
He's lost 1 Supercross title as a trainer and coach since Ryan Villapoto, and that was the Tomac year that Webb may have had a shot at if he didn't get hurt. So, Alden's 2020 won them all.
Yeah. So when we did the Supercross preview show the otter day, that Cooper's the number one question, and dude, Cooper, honestly, from 2019 to now, I've been like, hey, that's the guy. Like, dude, you can think what you want, but when it comes to Supercross, that's the guy. And, back to what we were talking about a little while ago of like, hearing people give you criticism online. So Monster Cup 2019, Cooper's first ride on the thing. Like, bro, I've been going to races for a long time. I've been seeing people ride. I said, hey, he looks good. He looks really quick and comfortable on that thing, like right off the rip. And somebody like just tore into me. Like, of course you would say that, you guys never say anything negative or this, and this or whatever. And I'm just like, I mean, bro, what do you want me to tell you?
I saw what I saw.
He looks good right now. Like, you'll see it tomorrow on Saturday. You'll see how he goes. And then you'll see through 17 races next year, but whatever, I saw what I saw. And then he wins the, what was it? He wins that Supercross championship in 2019. And I was just like, whoa, dude, like I was kind of onto something there. He does look really good. And I agree with you. Up to 2020, before he gets hurt at Dallas, he's on the route. He's on the move.
He's got a shot on it. I mean, he's close.
He gets over being sick at those first 3 races. Starts putting a rally together. We get to Salt Lake. He was in a huge hole. And then some of those Wednesday night races were amazing. Those ones that he won. Some of those battles with Eli in the mud that day that they lapped Kenny. Like, oh my God, that is all-time Supercross race stuff. So then, like you said, to go into 2022, Cooper is defending champion, 2-time champion, been pretty much written off every single time he's been champion. This is him going to do it.
Probably getting written off again by a lot of people.
Written off again already because, like, oh my God, what a what a side move to leave Alden. Why would you leave Alden? Because he's going to tell you that the same thing that Dungey and Villapoto and Jason told you. If he kept doing it, he's not going to have that much longer of a career. Let him go out there and be what he is. He knows how to do it. Michael Byrne's going to be his new riding coach. Burner's going to hold him accountable for everything he does. They're not going to let him half do anything. KTM's not going to let him half do anything. And the number one fear, and this is for every rider, they don't want to get beat. The fear of getting beat is the biggest thing in their whole world. Cooper's not going to let himself get beat.
Especially under this circumstance,
especially
because
under this one where he has to.
You took the leap of faith. You took a leap of faith, and to me, I said it on my podcast. Look, if he wins, that's a big statement for him, and unfortunately, unfairly, probably a little bit of a demotion for Alden's brand, a little bit, because it's like, hey, I went over here and was able to win without you. If Cooper loses, Alden can be like, hey, you left the program that worked for you, buddy. That's what you get. What you get.
Yep.
So this story is incredible. It's a lot
huge.
like the Brady Belichick story in football. It's the same type of thing.
And then you add in the AP thing, because then you're going to basically take Aaron, same situation. You're going to take him from Yamaha when you're going to put him over there. And then is Aaron going to have all the fun sucked out of him? Is that the big concern? Or is he going to step up and be the title contender? Exactly. There's so much stuff that's there. And for Alden, this is no disrespect to him. But, once you get to a certain point, people want to start looking for ways to knock you down a peg. And I think that Alden's in that point right now, because winning so many races, he's won so much. So there's always that question, is it him or is it the racers, or is it him or is it the racers, or what are they doing? Now it's going to be on, did Alden really do it? Can he turn Malcolm and AP and Zach and all these other guys? Can he keep them there? Or is, has he just been really blessed to have all-time racers,
right guys at the right
every
time.
Single time, so who knows? We'll see what happens from there. But for Alden, I agree with you. This is just as important of a year for Alden as it is for Cooper, because so much stuff has happened down in Florida over these last 3 years. KTM trying to make that, their facility. There's a big investment in there, and they really need to make sure that thing still progresses and produces results every single year, so they keep it going.
Okay.
It's a big year. So dude, this is a big year for every single rider on the starting line.
Okay.
I know that sounds like hyperbole and it's just so dramatic, but
no, it is
22 dudes that their career is on the line next year.
Okay. So we just had, it's going to blow your mind. We just had a really cool talk about probably the number one storyline going in. We're bench racing. We're freely talking about it. Where's the press release that this move has happened? Why is the biggest story in our sport? And now there's two ways to go about it. Number one, you can dig and do a story, which I'm assuming it's going to be done. Okay.
I interviewed him. I interviewed Cooper at Washougal, because it was one of those things where hey, he won the Supercross championship, and then, for the reasons we know, wasn't so easy to go run and get a How Was Your Weekend interview. Wasn't all that, whatever.
This is a story that has depth that you needed to get. You needed more info out of it.
So, but I'll tell you this, even back at those last 4 Supercrosses, I started noticing that Alden wasn't around, and I looked at the championship photos on the podium that night, and Alden wasn't there. And that was the first time where I'm like, okay, this is serious. This is really, something's going on. And then we went through those first 5, 6 nationals. Cooper did okay, but that Supercross hangover deal. So finally, Friday afternoon at Washougal, I saw him, and I'm like, I'm going to get him. I got to go over there. I got to ask. You got to do it. I got to do it. So I was like, hey, can we talk about your change? And he's like, yeah. So we start talking, and, the interview's on Swap Moto Live. And he explains everything there. And then we ended the recording. He's like, hey, thanks for setting that up the way you did, because I got to say exactly what I needed to say. You didn't make it this big dirty secret or anything. It's very factual. Everybody knows I'm leaving. I just get to say what I need to say. Thanks for letting me say it that way. And I'm like, hey man,
and you didn't TMZ him, dude. No, it was totally legitimate. And
and as what we've been talking about, this is a professional business decision. That this is an adult decision. You got to let Cooper speak about it like an adult, rather than gotcha. You can't always do that to people and think that it's going to work out. These are this is something that's going to change the trajectory of his career and his life. So you got to got to approach that with a little bit more respect. I agree with you. There should have been some more communication that was out there, and it was kind of danced around very lightly until you just put him on the spot. And then when you put him on the spot, and then he's opening up, he said it in some press conferences and stuff like that too. But it sucks that you have to feel like, oh God, what kind of mess am I going to start if I have to ask this question?
Right.
I agree
But
with you.
again, if in all other big sports, if a rider is released or a rider is, or not a rider, a player is released, is traded, these things are so official. And my question is where is the official PR on this very important topic? Should that come from Cooper? Does he need his own PR guy that releases his PR? Does KTM do it? Why are we talking about this? And this is the biggest story ever, yet the mass public who's not in it daily might not even know the fact that this is the biggest story because there's no official press release on something like this, which I think there should be. This is important.
I agree. And okay, this goes back to where we were talking about like, hey, why did Supercross, like, why were we so without a rudder there for a while and like trying to find a major league sport to copy? We see the sports we need to not copy, but emulate or follow their lead, which is
bring pieces from, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that because there's been a disconnect of like, here's the team and you can only say what the team says, but then the rider's an independent contractor and they're separate and they kind of have to do what the boss says. But at the same time, you're your own employee, you're your own business. People don't know this. Most of those riders are an LLC. They are a legitimate business of themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, the race teams aren't sending a paycheck direct to his bank account. It goes to a corporate account because they're an athlete. They have to manage all these sponsorships and all these endorsement deals, all these things that come in. Mm-hmm. As the athlete and as the business of being an athlete, making these statements and making these announcements and these things that are going on in your program, you really have to think about that as part of the business, just the same way you did training and negotiating your deals and where you're going to live at to do your job. All of these things are part of it right now. And I think over time, we're going to see more and more people realize that. Unfortunately, we've just kind of been stuck in the Stone Age for a bit, but I think over the next 5 years, just as things kind of finally catch up, we'll see more and more guys do that. I think Jet Lawrence is going to be one of those guys that would really help set that tone going forward. You know, he's going to be one of those guys that's completely open and understands like, hey, there's worthwhile value in telling us what's going on rather than to let us speculate and just assume, because then that's how all these like crazy rumors that have no accountability or believability get started and passed off 100%. As the truth, is because there's nobody coming from the top level down telling us what's going on.
It's no official. You have to wonder and guess because you heard from your buddy or you heard whatever, instead of these riders maybe taking control of their own. Not just they've all taken control of their Instagram. We talked about that.
Yeah,
they're doing their own.
But there's more to it.
There's a professional aspect that needs to come too, where these things need to be officially released, maybe a PR. I don't know how they do it, but I feel like there's some massive stories that need to be official and coming from the entity instead of us here on a Beyond the Track talking about it, preview show talking about it. We're going to go into round one on TV, and there's probably going to be no official release that Cooper and Alden have split, and that should come from somebody. It's got to come officially.
Will you guys have that media day roundtable thing again? Like in a couple months, probably?
I would assume so.
I would assume. Maybe this is one of those things that, you know, as we go forward, like, hey, you and I had this kind of moment of like, hey, let's do that. Once you're there, we got to be able to start telling riders this. And I think this goes back to the communication thing through all groups. You know, the last 2 years have not been easy for anybody. But fortunately, what we've seen is communication from everyone within our circle, from Feld to the race teams and the AMA, to the riders, to us, the industry, to the media to the people. Hey, man, all the cards are on the table. We're telling you everything we know. There's no secrets. There's no jokes. There's no nothing now. Finally, to be at that point as a byproduct of these last 2 years, let's all just kind of keep that going. Let's just keep that open dialogue. Because we're all going to get better from it. You know, there is stuff that, you know, personally, you don't got to tell everybody everything that's going on. But if you do feel like, hey, if we work on this together and it's going to advance us all going forward, let's do it. You know, and I think that that's something that we need to do because, okay, you say the Cooper thing, the AP thing is a similar deal too. You know, because we know he's a KTM. We know all these things are happening, but there's a lot of people don't even believe he's a KTM right now because they haven't put a press release out there. And it's just like, oh my God, you could avoid so many of these little nightmares and headaches if we just had everything ready to go in agreement, in unison. Here we go. There it is. No questions.
I mean, dude, okay, last thing before we go, I got to get this in. You see when like the high school football kids are going to pick which college they're going to, and they got all the hats in front of them, and they sign their letter to go to Alabama or LSU, whatever. I mean, this is just dreaming, but God, wouldn't it be cool to have AP in the KTM office with all the big wigs there, all as he signs his contract, media there, to have his official release happen. I don't know, like when it happens.
Yeah, right.
So much radder than having to do it the way we do. Like, and I know there's contracts,
Just
but
keep
God, we
hitting
can all
refresh.
be open.
Yep.
Yeah, we can all be open and honest about it. These deals are signed before their old deals is up. We know that, and the teams let them go. Callie actually did pretty cool this time with the Eli thing.
Dude,
Thanked him on the way. That was rad. Like times 10 that all the time, and we have such a better system in place, man. It's just cooler that way instead of wondering. Like again, we're in mid-October. We're doing preview shows. JP riding for KTM. I haven't seen anything official.
Yep. And
but like, come on.
I agree. Yamaha did the same thing with AP. They said, hey, thanks for the memories. We had a great time together. Doesn't get more official than the brand that he rode for the last years of his amateur career and his entire professional career to this point, saying thank you. And that, hey, he's not going to be here next year. Like it doesn't get much more official than that. I think with you, I agree. You know, that would be such an awesome thing. Bring us all together, make it a spectacle. Let's get 7 interviews with Aaron from every different perspective. You guys are there, us, Racer X, Vital, whoever. You know, he'll probably hate it because he's going to answer the same question 7 times or whatever, but
he'll laugh.
Think about the engagement that would then drive, because that's, you know, 25,000 video views here, 20,000 Instagram views here, this, and this. That's just that number that gets bigger. And again, to talk about the whole situation in the whole industry, that's a bigger number than we get to go take off to non-endemic sponsors or to new partners or to new broadcast companies or whoever is out there for us to then go, look how good Supercross is. Look how good we've done.
Look how into it everybody is.
Look how into it everybody is. Look at the final engagement number that it makes. Like, how would you not want to be a part of this? That is the number one thing. And if everybody could just get onto that understanding of like, if we work on this together, we're going to bring in all those endorsement deals and we're going to bring in all of this stuff that you guys have always wanted. We're going to have to work on it together. Obviously, it's going to make some changes, but like it's there if you just streamline it together.
100%.
The Players Association that, you know, Major League Baseball, NBA has, all that stuff. Like tonight, when we record this today, but I think tonight's the first NBA games of the season and everything. Watch those commercials that they play on ESPN or ABC or whatever channel it is that plays it. They have a Players Association logo that's in the bottom corner of all those commercials, because the players got a cut of that stuff. Like if you want the sport to advance, like you guys they all have to be on the same wavelength together. You can't just think that like, well, Supercross needs to do this and it's going to automatically be where it is. No, everybody has to work on that because there's different programs that are all pieced together. It's not just one puzzle piece that fits everything. Right.
That's why it's not on the promoters alone. It's not on the manufacturers alone. It's not on the riders alone. It's not on the media alone. Nope. Everybody needs to be like, hey, we're all kind of in the same world, but if we glue this thing together, we could push this thing into a new world. And that comes with that professionalism, in my opinion. There needs to there's some accountability there that needs to be a little bit better, in my opinion.
And understand not everything's going to be perfect. You know, nothing ever will be. You have to understand that. You have to understand that, like, it's not going to be a complete even split everywhere. You know, sometimes you're going to have to work a little bit harder than the other guy did, but it'll catch up for you eventually. And I think if we could just get everybody onto that same note, you know, dream world, whatever. But I think if we really did that, man, like we could just see such good stuff, especially because we're entering such a fun, dynamic era for the sport. Look at the racers that we have. I've been saying this for like 2 years, and it sucks that it's kind of coming true, because I knew this contract season was going to be an important one. This is the end of the line for a lot of guys, you know. Enjoy
next year. Hey, next year is going to be goofy.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be, dude, all the 250 guys coming up and everything. Enjoy what you see in 2022, because this could be the last time you see some of those guys. This is the best time that it's ever been to be a fan. You get to see it from so many different angles. There are so many people that put out content. It's never been easier to see it. Like, this is the ideal time to do it. And it's the ideal time to be a part of it too. And we could invest so much in our industry over the next 3 years. That's going to get us through the next 5 to 10 years if we all can just work on it together.
I agree. And just for y'all out there, just imagine video edited, rad, whatever, media involved as Malcolm Stewart signs his Rockstar Husqvarna contract. Alden Baker's there, shakes all. He's going back to work with the trainer who coached his brother.
Exactly.
Imagine how rad that would be if we got to see it all done that way instead of still wondering. But we all know, that's pet peeve. I know this took up a lot of time, but I think with
no, that was
you're
good.
the person I wanted to talk to about, because again, as I said in the very beginning, you handle yourself in such a traditional, professional way while also integrating into the sport in its ways. And I just feel like you would be the one to talk to about it. So it was a good talk.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, dude, I have so much fun just talking about this stuff. You know, I the bicycle that's over my corner, you know, over my shoulder, like I'll go ride for like 40 miles at a time out here. It's like out in the back roads in the middle of Illinois. And I just think about like, hey, what could we do for this? Or how could we do that? Or what if this guy worked with this guy? Like, you know, this whole boom that we're seeing of new riders that are out there and bike sales and gear sales and all that stuff. Like, I'm thinking like, man, who could we call to like put together a whole initiative that the whole industry could get behind and then like do that. And I have a guy in mind that I think could do it if everybody like lined up with it enough. And like, hey, what if this guy and this mechanic and this rider got together on this bike? Like those daydream things is fun, you know? And I think that we're all doing that stuff in the industry. We're all daydreaming about how it's going to be better. Now we just need to talk about it more and be like, hey, let's get a good brainstorm session going and see what ideas stick and what ideas don't have any weight.
I love it. That's why we have these talks. Anton, thanks for coming on Beyond the Track, man. And
dude, thanks, Daniel. This was bad. This was great.
We'll be talking more before because we're both nerds and we love it. So.
Oh yeah, you'll be seeing me a lot. We got 17 races all across the country this year to talk to each other. It's gonna be a good time.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, bud.